All right.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to day 2 of VirtualCon 2014. And here we have our keynote address. I'm just going to introduce our speaker today, Caitlyn Meeks Ferragallo. Caitlyn is an interactive media and virtual reality professional and advocate. One of the earliest team members at Unity Technologies, Caitlyn has been instrumental in the evolution of Unity Technologies, most specifically towards the creation and management of the most popular virtual goods marketplace, the Unity Asset Store. A graduate of UC Santa Cruz, Caitlyn has an interdisciplinary degree in computer science and fine arts. Before Unity Technologies, she worked for Interval Research Corporation, PC Gamer Magazine, Metacreations, and operated her own startup game development operation in Germany. Caitlyn is not only an advocate for virtual reality and virtual worlds, she's also an active and passionate virtual world user. Using the Unity game engine, Oculus Rift, and other technologies, her ultimate goal is to bring virtual reality and virtual worlds within the grasp of creative people, indie developers, and folks who yearn to reinvent their surroundings. Caitlyn, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So the floor is yours. Go for it.
All right. Well, hello all. It's amazing to be here. As Anna said, I'm Caitlyn Meeks, and I'm absolutely passionate about virtual reality, gaming, and in particular, shared multi-user virtual worlds. I'd really like to thank Brian Schuster and Anna and the rest of the awesome, nice to meet you too, Joker, the rest of the Otherverse team for giving me this opportunity to present something to you guys. I'm one of the early employees at Unity, creators of the Unity game engine, which is now the underlying technology of many new virtual reality projects. We anticipate that probably 90% of VR systems will have our software in them, which is super awesome. And I'm the general manager of the Unity Asset Store, which is an increasingly popular marketplace for virtual goods. It's really interesting to find myself speaking here at Otherverse to you all, because it's actually the first 3D virtual world where I really found myself engaged. As far as the early 1990s, I'd been involved in MUDs, Mushes, that scene, which kind of uses a similar idea of a virtual world with a multi-user presence. But we had to rely a lot more on our imagination. We had to describe things with text. We described ourselves with text, the spaces and rooms with text. And it was really effective. Even though we didn't have 3D technology, we filled in what we couldn't see with our imaginations. And interestingly, I think that's still very important and powerful today, even in places like Otherverse, and even in the highest fidelity of virtual worlds. We use our imaginations and our hearts to render the most important parts of our virtual world experience. But yeah, back in 2008, I came across Secret City. This is when I was living in Germany, actually. Secret City was the German franchise of Otherverse and RLC, except running from a German server in the German language. And shortly I made the jump over to Otherverse because I'm a native English speaker. And I found myself immersed in an extremely satisfying, socially rich, and engaging virtual world. I found like-minded people. We kind of formed a clan or a family, and we just sort of naturally fell into a very human space. Even, I don't want to say in spite of the adult nature of RLC at the time, that just made it more fun and more real. And I think there was something like, we were just all willing to be very human together in that space. In fact, looking back, it's kind of unbelievable how intensely connected we became and the strength of some of those bonds. We had a sense of ownership of the space. We kind of took on roles which matched our ideal identities or our ideal selves. And I took on building and decorating stuff, and people's Zabbies and my own Zabbie, and trying to use the admittedly kind of crude tools that Otherverse had back then in the most creative way to get the best effect and the most satisfying results. I remember trying to make a hot tub, and I needed to get steam effects coming out of it. And normally you'd use a particle system for that. Yeah. And the only particle system that RLC had at that point was an adult particle system that was used for an adult scenario, for the climactic part of an adult scenario. And I got an amazing steam effect out of it, actually, by tweaking and adjusting and scaling. And you'd never guess that. But it made the whole experience even more endearing and more special. So actually, even though I've also had regions on Second Life, I've made my own virtual world platform that I've experimented with, and the worlds I build in Unity, and I've been using High Fidelity, the new platform from Philip Rosedale. I actually have to say that Otherverse has been my most enriching experience in a virtual world, because we make it very real together with our hearts and imagination. So in a lot of ways, virtual reality and virtual worlds, it's kind of like an airplane that we're building in the air. We're building the airplane mid-flight. We don't always know what we're doing. We're making it up as we go along. And we have an idea of the direction we're heading. And we keep refining and improving the technology for a smoother flight. But it's very exciting. It's not something that has been laid out in front of us. It's something we're doing. Personally, I think the greatest piece of virtual reality hardware is something that we've all got, and it's free, and that's our imagination. But technologically, it's growing exponentially, and it can prove to be an incredible amplifier for the things that we can imagine. And how strange it is that something so intensely personal as the human experience in a multi-user virtual world, a place where we can find ourselves and lose ourselves and fall in love and make friends and betray friends, and that this is all rooted entirely, the part that isn't rooted in imagination is rooted in mathematics and silicon hardware and technology. And on the surface, that seems impersonal and cold. Back in the 30s, a computer was just a person, a mathematician, usually a young woman who the military had hired to calculate the trajectories of weapons, of projectiles using calculus. And this mathematical simulation stuff has just intensified and intensified and nested upon itself to become what we have today. The machines that we know and love, they came out of crude pieces of paper and cards, vacuum tubes, to become heaps of transistors, to heaps of transistors that fit in front of your television, to today where they're devices that are small enough to fit in your pocket. These miraculous little shining glass and metal rectangles, like your iPhone or your Android phone or what have you, with more computing power than we can imagine. I know that NVIDIA, for example, is developing a chipset called the Kepler-2, the K2, which uses very little electricity, but is about as powerful as today's highest-end $1,000 graphics card. And you're going to have this in your pocket. Everyone will. So things are accelerating so quickly. It's kind of hard to fathom what the future will be like. And with that, the way that we interface with our machines, this has evolved too. So, the first computers were toggle switches, really, and lights. And then soon you would drive these switches with paper tapes and punch cards, and then keyboards and monitors, and now we have the virtual reality display. which isn't entirely new. I mean, in theory, mathematicians and computer scientists were aware of what this could mean, of turning mathematical worlds into something you could walk around and see and experience visually in 3D. It was in 1966 when the first VR headset was invented by Philco Electronics, and this thing could, it had two huge tubes, two display tubes in front of your face, and it had positional tracking, so you could kind of do a very crude virtual reality experience. Evan Sutherland came up with his headset, which was even better, and they called it the sword of Damocles, because the darn thing was so huge and so heavy. It had to hang over your head on an enormous metal rack, and it would crush you if it fell. And this technology was so expensive and so cumbersome, it was completely impractical for any kind of day-to-day use, except for the most expensive government and military and aerospace contexts. So today, though, with the advent of much, 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 much smaller technology and inexpensive production processes, and just readaptation of existing technology like you have in your phone, we have the Oculus Rift headset. We have the cheeky new Google Cardboard, which is so cheap and fun to make. You can just slap it together in 5 minutes, drop your handset into it, your iPhone or your Android, and suddenly you're immersed in a virtual world. And there's some amazing new technologies that are on the horizon. We had our recent Unite conference in Seattle last week, and this is a conference for Unity developers, and it was delightful, by the way, to see the Otherverse team there. And Valve, creators of Steam, Valve has an awesome new virtual reality technology, and they were kind enough to give me a demonstration. It's a virtual reality room. You wear a 3D headset, not unlike a Rift, and it does precise positional tracking inside this room. It's basically like the holodeck. And I spent about a half hour in this virtual space, walking around, approaching furniture, ducking and stepping out of the way of obstacles coming towards me, walking through an enormous foggy forest of mathematically generated polygon trees. It was completely sublime. There was no latency or jittering, and I even did things like get down on my hands and knees and crawl under stuff, and then stand up on it and look at it from above, and just get really close and peer at something, just like reality. In fact, it sounds kind of corny, but afterwards, when I took the headset off, I was a little uncertain that it was actually off. So the future of virtual reality is going to be amazing, and it's not that far away. And there's new technologies that are coming that are even more mind-blowing, like light field displays. A new sort of display technology where the light that you're looking at isn't just coming from two little screens jammed up against your eyeballs. It's being projected from a special display where the light enters your eye exactly the same way as it enters in the real world. And your brain deforms your eyeballs in the same way to focus on different depths. As far as your brain and optical system is concerned, it's identical to reality. And given enough artfulness and design decisions and design direction, you could make something totally indistinguishable from the real world. So what we see today with things like Rift and the Valve Room and the coming light field displays, they're incredibly real. They're coming quite soon, and you'll be able to pick up, for example, a cardboard headset at Barnes & Noble this Christmas as a stocking stuffer for under $25. Facebook's acquisition of Oculus VR and the fact that they dumped $2 billion into it just adds more fuel to the fire. So this technology is here right now, and it's just going into production. It's going to be in your house very soon. And you're going to find yourself challenged and delighted and stimulated. You're going to find yourself asking new questions like, what is identity? What is gender? How realistic does a virtual thing have to be? How far can I remove the concept of a chair from a physical object into a symbol where it still has meaning? How can I make that symbol even more real than it is in the real world? These are insane, deep, profound philosophical questions. We're going to be having a lot of fun, just the same way we have fun in Otherverse and other virtual worlds right now. And it's going to be more realistic, and it's going to be more exciting. But there's also going to be profound, important questions that come up. And these questions are going to help us learn a lot more about who we are and what it means to be human. So, there's books like Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson or Ready Player One, which touch on this. They touch on what's possible, and they paint a pretty darn fun picture of of what things can be like, but it doesn't even come close to what's possible. It's our imagination, it's the human creative spirit, which is going to crack the crust of this delicious creme brulee of virtual reality. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait to try it. So thank you very much. I am really honored to be here to speak to you, and I hope you have a fantastic VirtualCon.
Thank you, Caitlyn, so much for that insightful speech there.
You're welcome.
I've known you for a while now. I remember the first time I met you was so long ago when a couple of the employees here at Otherverse, we came and toured through Unity, and it was just a few people in a small office. How has, and now you're absolutely huge. And I know that you've been there for the whole time. How has that experience been, going from a relatively small company to what you've become today?
It's been amazing. I was employee number 12, and we were all in a tiny little office in Copenhagen. And I'd been attracted to the company by its philosophy and the cool artist, human-friendly nature of it. And initially, when I joined, we were very ideological, and we had named all of our computers, all of our servers after revolutionary European terrorists, and everyone got the same salary regardless of what you did. We started out very egalitarian and very very ideological, and over time we've grown, and now we're 470 people, and obviously that's had to change a lot. So I would say that as we've grown, it's kind of like a new company every 6 months. And it's been a little challenging as one of the old-timers to kind of keep the culture intact and make sure that we're still a company that wants to keep virtual reality and computer gaming very human. So yeah, that's the biggest challenge. And of course, it's just terribly exciting when we go from being a few people who are sitting around a table and people say, "Who are you guys again?" to everyone wanting to talk to us. It's beautiful to know that we've made something that is touching a lot of people, and we're just scratching the surface. I know that the future is where the real magic is going to happen.
Predictions for the company?
For Unity?
Yes, for Unity.
Well, I know we're going to continue to grow. I know that we're working on some larger platform kind of deals. You're going to see a lot of the new technologies that are coming out for VR using Unity at their very core. So, and of course there's going to be expansion into games. And as technology grows, our product is always going to be growing. the coming Unity 5 version, we've got some insane physical-based rendering where the surfaces that you see in World are going to shine the same exact way they do in the real world, rather than kind of like the sort of cheap way that we illuminate and texture things today.
I saw that actually at the Unite conference last week. There were some demos where they were showing a car that was built in Unity, and it had dew on it.
Yeah.
And the way the paint reflected, and the way that the raindrops and the water drops were on the car, it was just absolutely mind-blowing.
Uh-huh.
Realistic and amazing it was.
It's really cool. And the great thing about this is that this all kind of is creating a snowball effect. So we get an innovation here, an innovation there, and then you add those two things up, and it's 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 2. When we start to see these technologies sort of stack up, it just grows exponentially. I mean, 20 years from now, oh my God, this is going to be absolutely insane. I can't even imagine where we'll be.
I know. We've come so far in the last 10 years. That it's amazing. I'm going to start to pull some questions here from the audience. We've got a steady barrage of questions coming in here.
Great.
The first one I've got here is they want to know how support from major consoles has helped Unity.
Support from major consoles.
Yes.
Well, I mean, initially that wasn't our major focus. As we came into the industry, our philosophy was to empower the small guy, to empower, or girl, empower the small indie developer. And our approach was, we're going to give you the same power that you can get from a console level engine for under $200. Since then, of course, all of the competition has now tried to copy our approach and is now lowering the prices dramatically and making their products more accessible to indies, but we did it first. Regarding console, though, Unity is a very, even though console development is expensive, we really make it affordable. And as you have things like Xbox Live Arcade and WiiWare and online marketplaces, Unity's really taken a lot of traction in that space because we enable indie developers to enter that market.
And another question here. On the topic of accelerated technical advances, where do you see virtual worlds in 5-10 years, and how will we be connected?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you can look forward to seeing a lot of the same experience that you have here in Otherverse and in other virtual worlds, the same kind of playfulness and the same kind of reinventing yourself and the same social and creative situations happening, but they're going to be more vivid. They're going to look a lot more realistic if you want them to. If you don't want them to look realistic, they can look wildly unrealistic, excuse me. And we will be experiencing them with, for those of us who opt to, with virtual reality headgear. And it's going to look beautiful.
Yeah.
It's going to look absolutely beautiful. And there will probably be some people who don't want to take it off.
Do you see that the boundaries between sort of the artificial and realism being pushed?
Yeah.
As we advance, yeah.
Yeah, and not just visually, but conceptually. Like, it makes us rethink who we are.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Another question here. In terms of hardware, do you think we still have HMD, external hardware? If not, how do you envision it? Are these topics discussed at Unity, and how do you plan for this in the future?
Yeah, well, HMDs are definitely coming on hard. And, we here at Unity, we take it very seriously. We have people dedicated just to VR, and a number of people who are working hard on it. And whenever there's a new technology, we're always certain to get our hands on it. So I'm sitting here with a couple of Oculus DK2s, which are absolutely amazing. But what really has me excited is this this light field display technology. And when you look at something in the real world, your eyeballs have to deform a little bit. You have to deform the lens to focus on something. So if you're looking at something a mile away or something up close, there's a very subtle deformation of your eyeball that's happening. And you just do this automatically and naturally. And it seems like a very small thing. But when you're wearing a virtual reality headset like the Oculus, basically you're focusing on something that's always in front of your eyes, and it kind of simulates the illusion of depth. But your brain is having to kind of put that together and kind of fake it. But after a while, your brain will actually sort of figure out, like, hey, I'm not just looking at something that's actually off in the distance because I'm not deforming my eyeballs that way. Your brain actually will kind of figure out that it's looking at two different pictures over time, and it's not going to it's going to lose its effect eventually. So this light field array, though, this is a way to display things into your eyeballs, to kind of project into your eyes in such a way that the light is identical to the way it comes in from the real world. So you just could not tell the difference between the way that light enters and touches your retina from the way it does in the real world. And your eyeballs have to deform the same way. So to your brain, the brain just thinks it's reality. And that's amazing. And that's maybe 5 to 10 years off. And yeah, brain-computer interfaces, eventually that's coming.
Yeah.
We have here in San Francisco the company Emotive, and they're doing some really good consumer-level BCI technology. And they have Unity support. And so I think it has a way to come still, but they're on the right path.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, Twisted Willie says he wants a suit that makes you feel like you're touching or being touched. I've seen that already. I've seen that
Have you?
technology. I have. We actually are talking, Otherverse is talking to a company out of Europe who has developed something like that. So that is there. It's in the works. Everything is in the works, if not being thought of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I've got another question here. Will there be any technologies for capturing sense of smell? It's like a fourth dimension there.
That's a good one. Actually, you know what? I've heard of there is, and it's not being talked about in the game or virtual reality industry, but I have read that there is such a thing that's being used for, I guess, for identifying different chemical compounds and things.
Oh, wow.
So
for like a practical application.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have no idea how it works. And, I do know that there's a company that actually created technology to emit smells, like a scent printer. And we were near them at the Game Developers Conference a couple of years ago. And it was so smelly. You didn't want to be near them.
Oh.
So it was more of a novelty than anything practical. I think in 20 years we probably will have BCIs, brain-computer interface, where we won't have to use crude mechanical hacks.
Yeah.
But the mechanical hacks we're going to have in the next 10 years are not crude at all.
No, definitely not. What about mobile, Caitlin? Where do you see mobile heading?
Yeah, mobile's exciting. So let's see. Well, in terms of virtual reality applications and virtual world applications, it's just interesting to consider mobile. There's a lot of overlap, I think, with augmented reality. I think we're going to see virtual worlds where let's see, well, there's a product called Meta right now, and this is kind of like Google Glass on steroids, where it can sort of project over existing glasses and superimpose.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you?
Yeah, I saw that at Unite last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably what's going to be possible is to have, I anticipate people creating rich shared experiences in the real world where there's this second layer of virtual reality on top of it. So a playground, you can have kids running around a playground playing with the Cheshire Cat like it's Alice in Wonderland, and no one else will see it, just whoever's wearing the headsets. And they'll sort of be able to share this experience together. You're going to see things like telepresence where, I'll be sitting in a room at a table and I can look across and see you sitting sitting in a chair there as well, and me sitting in another chair, all being calculated and displayed by the headset. So yeah, I think we're just going to see digital information overlaid onto reality in the mobile space increasingly.
And hopefully for future conventions we can actually do that, where we're having the talk with each other, but we're not in the same room. That would be kind of neat there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So moving on to some more questions from the audience. Is artificial intelligence a topic of conversation at Unity? What are your thoughts on it? And how do you feel it will tie into virtual worlds?
Oh, good question. Let's see. Well, nowadays VR, I'm sorry, not VR, AI, got to get my acronyms right. Artificial intelligence in the gaming sector hasn't been too intelligent. There's a handful of algorithms that people have used to create intelligent non-player characters and enemies that can kind of find their ways around obstacles in the world. They know to jump over here and climb up this ladder to get to you. So to a degree, like the majority of AI that's been in games really isn't that complicated or sophisticated. But that being said, people are adapting AI increasingly into other scenarios. Let's see, I saw at ITSEC, this is a military and simulation trade show, I witnessed kind of a group dynamics AI simulation where the system was driving physical robots on a battlefield, and there was kind of a central computer that was simulating kind of like the mental and emotional state of each one. And it simulated leadership, and it simulated, like in the most human sense, it simulated fear and all these emotions that a platoon of soldiers would have. It was actually simulating them, so that this one over here is very, very dear to this other person, and this one is very protective, and it's running a simulation based entirely on personality types. And then these robotic soldiers, which are actually like Segways, kind of with mannequins strapped to them, are sort of driving around this battlefield. So we're going to see emotional simulations, emotional AIs coming. And I'm also aware of systems where the AI can sort of recognize textures and entities in the more abstract sense in a virtual space. We will see this coming into Unity increasingly as intellectuals and academics and geniuses and brainiacs bring their technology closer. One of the great things about Unity is it's super extensible, and it's really easy to take something that you've made and bring it into it and kind of extend Unity. So we're seeing people who've done that, like people who have worked in AI or have worked in a special kind of novel graphics, and suddenly they're just able to like pop it in So it's going to become more and more sophisticated. And I'm kind of the Ray Kurzweil school that probably in 20 years we'll have computers that can simulate the physics behind the human brain and have something that we could reason with and talk to, and something that you could argue is as human as we are.
Definitely. We had a speaker yesterday actually referring to that and their program. It's very reminiscent of the movie Her.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Next question here from the audience. Speaking of predictions, predictive analytics in with virtual world data sets. Ever been a topic at Unity? If so, how do you see it being utilized?
Well, we do talk about predictive analytics a lot here. It's always been, though, in kind of the gaming sector. It's interesting in a virtual reality context, in a virtual world context. I know that the more that people invest their time and money into a project, the more feedback they want to get on the state of it and the directions that it should be led, changes and adjustments to the technology or to the design to increase its efficacy. And, we at Unity are working on kind of integrating an analytics system into our technology, into our engine. So if you're a developer and you really wanted to understand what's going on with the pulse of your project, you'll be able to get that. So yeah, we will see that increasingly enter the virtual world space. It's really up to you, though.
Definitely. I have another question here. What is the timeline for when Otherverse will catch up with gaming engines, and how long before we ride, drive, and interact with the environment?
That one's for you, Anna.
That's a little bit for me. Well, I mean, if you have taken a look at Curio, which is our new platform, and we are actually having a party there. The party at the end of the day tonight at 6 p.m. is actually over in Curio. That is built on Unity. So we definitely have caught up with the gaming engines, and you will be able to interact, ride, drive, things like that. So
the great thing about Curio being built on Unity is that now that the framework is there, even if the design or graphics of it in its current state is new and young, there's going to be so many possibilities for it. There's a very strong likelihood that it will eventually be absolutely stunning and photorealistic if you wanted it to be.
Agreed, and definitely VR compatible. I was when I was in Seattle last week with you, I was doing some demonstrations on the DK2, and it looked phenomenal. Being able to look down at your body and see your avatar body, and also, we're looking into doing some integration with the Leap Motion, the hand sensor.
Oh yeah.
So that when you can possibly prop edit and move things with your hands instead of that archaic system from way back in the day, Caitlin. I don't know if you had to actually do calculations to know what degree to turn an object.
I have done it.
Yeah, the very, very first version of prop editing was highly archaic, where we had to actually calculate the degrees and the longitude and latitude in order to move the object instead of what we have now, which is more of a click and place thing. But taking it even further, where you can actually move things with your hands while you're wearing your headset. Very, very exciting stuff. And a lot of companies that we're working with, and I know that you guys are working with, and it's kind of like a one big family right now of sharing information and sharing new technologies and sharing ideas. It's a really exciting time to be in.
It is, yeah, and that's what's so cool is a lot of the people who I work with, both here at Unity and people like you in the industry, we're doing this because it's cool. There's money in this industry too, but that's not why we're here. We're doing this because it's just so damn exciting.
It's exciting, and we see the potential. We see the
Yes.
potential for where it's going, and it's really great. And having conventions like this, and sort of being at Unite last week and at SIGGRAPH the week before, and so on and so forth, being able to meet and discuss all of these new technologies, and to know that we're all sort of in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels good. It feels good.
Mm-hmm.
So, Caitlyn, any last predictions, thoughts?
Well, let's see.
Wishes for what you kind of want to see happen in the industry.
I just want to see people remember that the most important technology we have is in our heads and our hearts, and never to always to make the technology serve that. We need to make the technology serve our creativity and the human imagination has to be its master. Mm-hmm. And I think as long as we do that, we are going to have the world. We're going to have all things that we use to drive it.
Well
the
said.
fun things, yeah.
Well said. Well said, and a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Caitlyn, for being here.
You.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, spend time with you. Like I said, for quite a long time, so it's a sort of
yes
for
great the conference as well.
Yeah, so Caitlyn has been a long-time user of the system, so she definitely will be running around. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, ask any questions, should they just do that through your avatar? Is there another way?
I know I'm Caitlyn, kind of like my inverted without.
In the studio hall, we have Dan Rattan, CEO and founder of RainCloud, who will be joining us, as well as 2 p.m. at the lecture hall here. We're going to have the panel, The Future of Virtual Worlds, moderated by Jason Gerald. So we had a fantastic panel today, as the one that, so in Oreo browser. And if you haven't done that, go to thevww.com. That's thevww.com, and I'll put it in the chat shortly. Chance to take